What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be about Chelsea and Aston Villa and in their match in the Premier League this season. So Chelsea ended up winning the match over Aston Villa, who played very well for most of the game. Before we start, check out my books. They're online on Amazon and there's links in the description below, so be sure to check that out. Also, I'm using Keyframe to make this video, so there's a link to that in the description as well. But let's get right into the video. So Chelsea didn't do too much differently in their build-up stage, at least in their first progression. They went with their three central defenders and tried to use Mendy as little as possible. Then Saul made his debut for Chelsea alongside Kovacic and was subbed off after halftime, and it looks like he's going to take a little bit of time to get adjusted to the Premier League and how Chelsea play. But Marcos Alonso then played as the wing-back role, and his role in the team was crucial for this match. Aston Villa tried to counter this 3-2 build-up shape, or the 3-4-3 from Chelsea, with a 5-3-2 of their own. So what Aston Villa did, they had Ramsey and McGinn jump forward to gain direct access to the double pivot of Chelsea, and then they went with Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins as their strike partnership with two up front and their 5-3-2. And what this did is it took away options from the wide central defenders, and the free player was then the most central defender, Thiago Silva. So he played a very big role in this match, and from here, this is where they tried to derive their numerical advantage, with all over the field pretty much matching up man for man, with the two systems almost mirroring each other. As we go forward, we see this is exactly how it shaped up, with two forwards taking away wide central defenders, and Danny Ings had the lesser of the defensive responsibility, primarily positioning himself on Rudiger, whereas Ollie Watkins more often than not would press out to in to then use his cover shadow to take away the wide central defender of Chelsea and try and create positional superiority against this. Then with the man orientation from the midfield too, force Chelsea to make new movements and look for different ways to solve these problems, because with the current setup, it was very hard for Chelsea to maintain this shape and create an advantage to progress past these first two lines. While they were able to progress sometimes through third man movements through the central midfielders of Saul and Kovacic. So the third man movements would go into the holding midfielder, and then they would exploit the wide center back, who would then become free when they attracted Ollie Watkins. But through dangerous transitions of Aston Villa, they started to use more horizontal interchanges between their players and their wingbacks. So as we see here, we have our three central defenders playing each of the central corridor. Thiago Silva positioning himself a little bit higher now after he was driving with the ball forward to disrupt the press. And now we see the interchange of Marcos Alonso and the role he played in possession. He would then come off the wing and go narrow to ask different questions of the Aston Villa defense and allow Kovacic now to become free in the wide area with more space, with Sean McGinn prioritizing his central positioning rather than man orientation. And now we clearly see the 5-3-2. And because of Marcos Alonso's positioning, now the wingback for Aston Villa had to make a decision, because now his reference points completely changed. So this little disruption in how Aston Villa shifted caused new problems and was a potential avenue to progress for Chelsea. When we would move deeper, Aston Villa lined up in their 5-3-2, and now they became more spatially oriented. So in the high block or higher up the field, they played more man-oriented, and then now when they were in their mid to low block, they played much more spatially oriented, which helped Aston Villa neutralize the effects of the players between the lines by maintaining their compactness. They used cover shadows to block the half spaces and jumping wide central defenders to then prevent any sort of face forward action from these advanced players. And now we can start to see the staggering of the double pivot, and when Jorginho came on, it made the world of difference for Kovacic, because he was able to then go forward and he was able to recover the ball in transition more and have more effects in the final third. But when it was Saul and Kovacic, Kovacic played a deeper role alongside Saul, but primarily focusing on the left half space with the staggering of these two players. So with Saul just being a new signing, just stepping into the team, it caused some problems for them and some adjustment would be needed at halftime. But we see with the narrow positioning of the Aston Villa block, this allowed the wide central defenders of Chelsea to then move into the wide area and look to progress around the block with the wingbacks creating width and the attacking midfielders positioning themselves in the half space. Now attacking the mid block again through Chelsea, we see the staggering of the double pivot, and now this becomes a trend with manipulating the midfield three of Aston Villa and displacing them and using the man orientation to their advantage. So now we see the midfield three of Aston Villa is narrowed. Callum Hudson-Odoi makes an inverted run higher up the field and allows Ziyech to drop deeper. And this counter movement between Ziyech and Callum Hudson-Odoi was very effective because this narrow run can pin Tyrone Mings and push back the wing back, allowing then Ziyech to become free and receive a diagonal pass from Thiago Silva, making it very favorable for Ziyech to face forward, generate superiority, and get the ball on his left foot to then continue the progression further forward. And this would also skip the two central forwards of Aston Villa and really neutralize their impact in this phase of possession. So now we see another way the double pivot used the half space now, and now rather than narrowing the positioning of the Aston Villa players, now we see them overextending themselves and now dragging the players out to then prevent them from creating access. So now they'll have to decide whether their spatial control in the center of the field to block off passes into Ziyech and Kai Havertz is more important, or is the access to Kovacic more important to their defensive setup? Because as the way it stands, the ball can be played from Thiago Silva to then Kovacic, and now we have the wingback and Ziyech forming a partnership and ready to go forward from here. When Jorginho came into the game, he acted more as a lone pivot and gave Kovacic more freedom to go forward, which made the biggest difference in the defensive transition phase. And we saw Kovacic get a lot more ball recoveries from Aston Villa's possession in their half of the field. So as we see here, Kovacic moves forward, Jorginho on the ball, and now Ziyech in the right half space, allowing then Kai Havertz to become more free. So the introduction of Jorginho made the team more fluid, and it also changed the shape of Aston Villa at times a little bit, as we see here, with now Sean McGinn dropping into a player like Ziyech, and now they have a single number 10 as it looks in this picture, and still with their two forwards. So it gave more space around the deeper half space and gave them better angles to launch their attack and progress the ball further forward. When Aston Villa were in possession, they used asymmetry to get their right-sided wide central defender in more of a fullback position in their 5-3-2, and Sean McGinn played as an 8 but oftentimes dropped deeper to then create the double pivot and pull the Chelsea players further forward, which created a lot of space in between the lines, especially when Chelsea were defending higher up the field, because as we see here, Kovacic jumping, it would just be Saul to then shield the back five. Further forward, we see the 5-2-3 of Chelsea, maintaining central access, but now even the two double pivots are very oriented towards Ramsey and McGinn, the two number 8s, and getting pulled out very easily into central positions. So the vertical compactness of Chelsea was able to be overextended a little bit, especially in the first half, but with strong performances from their central defenders. This wasn't exploited, and most of Aston Villa's chances came in transition through the half spaces and were a direct cause from their usage of two central forwards. So that's going to wrap up today's analysis. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.